And just before we come to the end of the show, something that we absolutely have to do in honor of the struggle stalwart and anti-apartheid activist Zondeni Veronica Sobukwe, who has died at the age of 91. This morning, we try and bring a tribute to this fallen hero, and she was the widow of the late PAC founder Robert Sobukwe. Mama Sobukwe was awarded the Order of Luthuli earlier this year, and this year, of course, also marks the 40th commemoration of the death under banishment of her husband, Robert Sobukwe. And to help pay tribute to Mama Sobukwe, we are joined on the line now by Political Economist Ms. Lebohang Pheko. Ms. Pheko, thanks so much for speaking to us this morning.
Thank you very much.
You know, I actually tweeted this morning that it is actually with a great sense of regret, and guilt that I learned of the passing of Mama Sobukwe this morning. And that's because I do believe that we could have done more and we should have done more, perhaps. But of course, like so many other women of the struggle, she was one of those who was also relegated to being a footnote of the struggle, just someone in the background playing second fiddle to the accomplishments of her husband. What do you make of that?
I agree. I mean, this is something that I've been particularly interested in and very concerned about. Many of us over the last few months, I think it begins with the passing of Nomzamo Madikizela, and the way that even the commemoration of Albertina Sisulu has become a footnote in the 100 years, and now, of course, very importantly, Mrs. Veronica Sobukwe, who has become very much relegated, as you say, to a footnote, but also to remember that visibility is a very important part of memory and history. And what we've done, this is an example that we yet again, where a social movement and a social revolution, a political revolution is co-created by this woman in conjunction with her husband, Dr. Robert Sobukwe. And then she is, of course, replaced by the story of the heroes. And that is, our history is replete with that. And I think that if we're unable to then understand that this is an ongoing violation of history and her story, we will not be able to really excavate the stories of people like Veronica Sobukwe adequately, and we'll continue to feed into the sort of the politics of wifing, the politics of othering, where somebody is just an appendage rather than a standalone political icon in their own right. And I think Mrs. Sobukwe has been done a horrible and ongoing injustice, not only by the apartheid regime, the colonial apartheid settler regime, which she resisted very valiantly in her own right, but also by the current dispensation.
I remember having a conversation about Mrs. Sobukwe last year, and one of the things that struck me was also when you tried to find information on her, there wasn't any, and there were just a few threads if you Googled her name, and in the main, it all came back once again to Robert Sobukwe. She was just, that figure in the background. And then the PAC this morning saying that the late Zondeni Veronica Sobukwe did not receive enough recognition for her role in the struggle against apartheid. So that begs the question then, whose responsibility is it to make sure that women like Mama Sobukwe actually do receive the honor that befits them?
And whose responsibility is it, in fact, to frame history and to frame our story? So I think that, we have fallen into the trap. South Africa, like many other countries, has fallen squarely into the trap of official memory and officialdom, where we assume that the single narrative, the single story, the official story is the only one. And yet there are many stories and there are many histories and many narratives that need to be excavated. And, typically what happens is that the state will lead the way that memory and history are housed. And the heritage sector, the memory sector, the education sector are very key in that. And it's very unfortunate that our state in particular has chosen to be very narrow and parochial in the approach to history, and one that only valorizes a very few, one particular political party for one thing, and of course chooses, to almost erase most women. And because Mrs. Sobukwe, Veronica Sobukwe, was somebody who was quietly spoken and not that was not playing to the theater of the spectacular, of theatrics. She was not a kind of person who you would hear much of, although she was on the ground doing spectacular work. I think she was a co-creator And I think one of the things that's really unfortunate in the way that we remember things is that we prefer to officialize history in this country. And I think that official history does not give us the space to have a democratic memory. And the democratic memory is one that allows for different political parties, different political streams, and of course for the many women in struggle to be brought to the forefront, not as footnotes, not as wives, not as mothers, not as daughters, but as standalone political activists and agents.
Ms. Pheko, thanks so much for your time. We're going to leave it there. And I trust that throughout the day, of course, there will be much more said, and we will learn much more about the life and times of Mama Sobukwe. But let's leave it there for the time being. And when we come back, we'll be saying our goodbyes.